Wow. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the first episode of the 8D8D podcast. My name is Ethan Wine. And today we're going to be talking about H3H3's content. He's a YouTuber. And before we get into that, we're going to start with some ad reads. So, this podcast is definitely not sponsored by Venom SnoreGuard anti-snoring system. Now, I have a friend who has a bit of it's not really a snoring problem, it's more of an obstructed breathing with noise problem. And so he purchased these little snore guards. They're basically tubes that you stick into your nose and makes it a little bit easier to breathe through your nose if you have trouble breathing, and it's supposed to help you stop snoring. So he got these, and my friend also has allergies. So sticking things in his nose just caused his nose to be more runny and didn't really help the problem that much. And he didn't return these within the return window, so he's a very smart person. And I would have worn these for during the podcast for a gag, but you wouldn't have been able to see that they were in my nose. And then my nose would have been running a lot, and it would have been not... it would have been funny for anybody. True. This podcast is also not sponsored by the Tough Mudder 2018 t-shirt. Now, the Tough Mudder, for those of you who don't know, is like a American Ninja Warrior obstacle course, but very mild and doable by people like me. And at this event, and it's also like a 10-mile run in between. And at this event, they hand out free t-shirts with included with your $120 entry ticket. And so these t-shirts are fine and dandy, and they would be a nice aerodynamic material for runs and things, except for this little issue. You see the little fronds? I'm now far away from the microphone. You see the fronds, the little dinglies, the little doodads here, the little dinglies? That's from the hem, and the hem, as you can see, starts here, but where did it go? It disappears. And you keep going, and you see, oh, there's where it picks up again, and there's more little dinglies. Now, when do you think this dingly frond problem started? Well, it was after 2 washes of this shirt. And, it's on the sleeve and the collar, and I'm sure that I don't know how important the hem is on the sleeve part. It's probably not going to fall apart yet, but just a little interesting observation that something called the Tough Mudder has it's ironic that they're not so tough in the t-shirt department, and so the little strings will kind of fall. Oh, well, okay, it is kind of falling apart here. So what happens is the little strings fall out from under the sleeve, and they give me like a ghost, like a phantom spiderweb feeling, and I don't like that. And so it's ironic that this is the least tough t-shirt that I own, second only to the Tough Mudder 2019 t-shirt, which has the same issue. So, Tough Mudder organizers, I hope you're watching. Anywho, welcome to the 8D8D podcast. My name is Ethan Wine, and we're going to talk about H3H3 Productions. But first, we're going to talk about, since this is the inaugural episode of the 8D8D podcast, we're going to talk about why it's called 8D8D and why it's so clever. And I printed this out because there's so many reasons that I wouldn't have been able to remember it. There's just so many. It's a joke that works on multiple levels. For starters, it's an acronym that stands for 8 Dinguses, 8 Dinguses. The first 8 is like the number 8, and the second 8 is like the word 8, as in I ate food. Similarly, the first dingus means a dim-witted person, and the second dingus means a small object that you can't remember the name of, aka a doodad or a thingamajig, or a dingly. This is a real alternate definition of the word dingus. Google it if you don't believe me. The second reason, it's a great acronym. The 8 and the D together make a little happy face emoticon, which reflects how happy and bubbly I am all the time. And there's another little happy face to show I'm really twice as happy. The third reason, if you've ever heard of 4D chess, it's a phrase used to describe something really smart. For example, that guy is really 4D chess today. Thanks, Dan. So 8D is like twice as smart, and 2 8Ds is like 2 times 2 is smart. That's just math. The fourth reason, it sounds like the year 8080, which is the year I'm living in. That's like it ties into the fifth reason, which is that it kind of sounds like the number 80 said twice in a row, which, when added together, equals my IQ. The sixth reason is that it kind of sounds like ADHD, which is something that I do not have. And then, yeah, just a note that I have the script in front of me. How very observant of me typing this 2 months ago. Reason 7, 8-bit. So video games at one point in time were 8-bit. You know, you saw a lot of these 8-bit games, and they had 8 bits. And the eighth reason is that there are 8 reasons that 8D8D is a good acronym, so it's gone full circle basically 3 times already, or 8 times. So let's talk about H3H3 Production. So for those who don't know who H3H3 is, what a great point to start actually talking about it. H3H3 Productions is a YouTube channel on YouTube, headed by Klein and Hila Klein, husband and wife team, that at least initially were known for making reaction videos, finding some weird little video on the internet that was unusual and not very well known and very interesting in many aspects. And he would watch the video and he would react to it. He'd turn his head and cough. That's a funny joke, but he was known for like his. We'll get into it. I should introduce this video to you. I could just show you something, but I mean, basically, this the intro to this podcast. Yes, I do have a small outline that I'm looking at, and screen cap that if you want to expose me at a later date. So the H3H3 podcast, the thesis of my podcast here today is to tell you that the H3H3 podcast is a shame. It is a shamble, and it is the worst podcast of all time. And I want to take you through the journey of H3H3's content from where it started and where it is today and how we got to this mess. And I also want to go through my journey as a H3H3 content consumer, right? I've been watching his videos around the time that he started until now, essentially. And so I want to go through both of our journeys together. I see on YouTube some people talking about, his new content versus his new videos versus his old videos, and then his new podcast versus his old podcast. But nobody talks about everything as a whole comprehensively. And so I wanted to, not dissect. It won't be too in detail. I mean, it'll be so in detail. It'll be the most in detail podcast I've ever done. But yeah, so let's take a look at his beginning on YouTube and one of his older videos. Let's rewind. It's rewind time, so Will Smith says. That's he does like a grunt. Dan? All right, never mind. So I'm going to pull up one of his old videos here. Thanks, Dan.
Hey, what's up, pranksters? Today, we're going to...
Yeah. Sorry, there's not this part.
We'll put it on your channel.
I should have queued this up before.
From Prank Invasion.
There we go.
Will you kiss my wife?
Keep up with it? They owe me a kiss.
I'm going to make up a crazy handshake. When girls can't keep up with it, they owe me a kiss. Let's go. Let's see what this crazy handshake looks like.
So that gives you a good idea of the type of his video that he made. So that was what he was known for back in the day in 2012, 2013, whatever it is, was those reaction videos. And I think it was popular in that time frame because everyone was still figuring out like how to do reaction videos on YouTube, right? Because there was =3 and just the straight like reaction videos where somebody would look at a video in the corner of the screen and react like right there and react to it and like just stare at it and like chuckle a little bit or like go wow or oh and then turn to the camera. Like Jinx, look up Jinx. Jinx Reloaded, I think, is the channel name if you're curious about what I'm talking about. But it was at a time where people were trying to figure out how to do the reaction format, kids react and things like that. It's basically like a friend simulator if you think about it. It's, if you show a video to your friend, you want to get his reaction, you show him the video and then you look at him and you see how he reacts and if he has any commentary. I mean, that's very similar format to what Ethan was doing, except, what made him stand out was, like I talked about before, he would find these weird videos that nobody was really talking about, or, I mean, like Expert Village, Prank Invasion, these YouTube channels that were just kind of odd. I mean, Prank Invasion was popular, but not with the Ethan Klein subsection of the internet. And they were very entertaining. He had a very fun personality. I think that was part of it too. He had energy. He had a big energy when he was doing his videos. As you saw, he was like shouting and yeah. People on YouTube like big energy, and I think that's why I'm so popular and I'm sitting at about 2,700-ish subscribers, is because people like big energy, and I think that's how I blew up. And so that was one reason people liked him. I'm realizing that if you haven't done podcasts before, your mouth gets kind of dry. That's relatable. To anyone who's done a podcast. But most of all, what made his videos popular was the signature cough. And he, as you saw in the video, he would go, like a really loud cough, just like that. And that was the key. I think that was what set him apart, was this very loud and obnoxious cough that just seemed to, it was like the F word is to, everyday speak. It's just thrown in there for a little bit of spice, and it adds oomph to everything that you say, or every sentence that it's included in. And that's the function of the cough was, basically. And just to show general disgust. I think that was the absolute reason why it blew up on our coughing YouTubers, and that's where he got his start. And let me just I'm relying too much on the script. This is all scripted? It's just an outline. Oh. I'm trying to go off the cuff as much as I can, but it's hard because I'm trying to show how easy it is, how incredibly easy it is to do a podcast. And that's what I'm proving here today. The biggest downside with Ethan's content is that he had inappropriate, mature humor. All right? I cannot tolerate such inappropriate humor. Jokes, we're talking jokes about subjects that rhyme with gex and glasturbation. All right, these are just off color and completely unacceptable, and I cannot stand for them. And if you tell these sorts of jokes, and I'm so smart in including the microphone right here so that when I turn this way, it's not capturing any sound. The logical thing to do would be have the microphone to the to this side so that if I turn this way, but that's not what smart people do. So if you think any of these inappropriate, mature jokes are funny, then I look down on you as a person. I think you're scum. I think you're trash. All right. These jokes are unacceptable, and you should be ashamed for even smirking at the notion that you would find these subjects funny. All right. And a pet peeve, another like a smaller kind of point, a pet peeve of mine is that Ethan drags out jokes a little bit too much. And, it's, I'm stammering. I'm saying, this is great for a podcast. I am doing so well in proving that podcasts are easy. What am I talking about? He drags out jokes. Okay. He drags out jokes a little bit too long. So he'll latch onto a certain idea on a joke, as comedians are wont to do. They'll say, wow, that woman is crazy. Isn't that funny? And then they'll scream like that woman might. I'm crazy. And then they'll show another clip of her being crazy, and they say, wow, she's crazy. And they just keep hammering the same point. And it's a little bit annoying to me because it's like, we get it. They're crazy. You don't have to hammer it home. And comedians will heighten things, right? They'll add on to it. Like, they'll just make the situation more and more and more ridiculous. Like, they'll prove that she's crazy. She screams. Imagine if she was in the DMV and she screamed then. Oh, classic comedy bit. Why do people at the DMV scream like this lady? She's crazy. And then, oh, my mother-in-law or her father-in-law was there, and she's my wife actually, and she's crazy. Like, they heighten, they raise the stakes. And they add more details to this story, like I did in this stupid example that made no sense. And they keep adding things to just make it more ridiculous. And Ethan doesn't quite do that, but he does sometimes. But it's just a little too slow paced. And I think the reason that might be is because back in the old days, like in the video clip that I just showed you, he would, I think, the algorithm favored the videos that were 10 minutes or more. Like 10 minutes was the magic number that everybody wanted to hit in terms of minimum video length, and then your video got promoted a little bit more. And so I think he was just trying to do that. That's my best theory. But also, it might just be core to his personality. And so from the start, he is, at his core, a bad comedian. And I think that's the main point that I wanted to make, is that he is just a bad comedian because of this little pet peeve of mine. So that's his old videos, right? And this was like 2012, 2013. He reaches peak H3H3 in about 2016, where he's launched into popularity and he's making wildly popular videos. And in 2016, he's collabing with big names, big YouTubers, and even the people that he's making fun of in these videos. Like, he invited the dentist guy, what's his name? John Dentist, Jimmy the dentist. He invited this dentist guy onto his podcast, and before the podcast, I mean, he made a video with Jimmy the dentist in like 2017, going back and forth with him at a restaurant or something. You can look it up. But he's collabing with these people that he's making fun of, and collabing with big names like Idubbbz, and doing these. And I'll show you just an example of his peak Idubbbz H3H3 content here.
But like his nip, he's got like some big ass nip. He's like big nips.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you just see a dude topless and you're like, you got big nips, dog. You could probably get some milk out of those.
I want to suck the milk.
All right, I can't show too much more because, it's way too inappropriate. Clearly, a lot of humor that has to do with a subject that rhymes with dipples. All right, and I cut it off too early, but basically, it drags out a little bit too long. There's another example of it dragging out a little bit too long. So that problem kind of persists in even in peak H3H3 in 2016. is that he still kind of drags jokes out a little bit too long. Oh, well, you know, whatever. It's kind of a personal preference thing, except it's objective, and the reason his videos are actually really bad. But in general, it's higher quality. It's higher quality than, of course, his previous videos. And as I said, he has guests on and everything, so he's really advanced and he's kind of blown up, and everybody loves it. That he's moving on up, and he's getting much better. So that's all cool, right? And things are good until he announces that he's doing a podcast. And this ushers in the end times. The end. Never mind. But so yeah, basically he's doing more podcasts and less. Thanks, Dan. So he's doing more podcasts and less videos, less regular videos on his channel. Not instantly, we're not right away, but in general, he just starts doing more podcasts and his video production goes down. And then, you know, the years go by, 2017, 2018, and people are starting to notice that he's putting more time and effort into his podcast than he is his videos. His main channel, H3H3 Productions, starts posting less and less until we get to about 2020, you know, fast forward. And you look at his, here, I'll show you a picture. You look at his channel nowadays, and this was taken a month ago-ish. I'm so good at staying current. I think he's posted another video since then about Mark Zuckerberg. But this was all his content for 2020. It's about 10 videos that he posted in the year of 2020. And like three of them are drama related with Keemstar, having to do with Keemstar. And then this one is drama related, having to do with another YouTuber. So there's a fair amount of drama, which is, you know, different from his reaction content. And there might be another drama one in there, because I'm not actually looking at the screenshot, because I'm not actually looking at a laptop right now. This is kind of a little fake out. I'll edit it later to make it look like I'm looking at a laptop. But basically, less reaction videos is the main point. And the few reaction videos that he does, two of them are this like weird crab meat ASMR kind of thing, or like seafood thing. And they're just, I tried to watch them and they're just a little bit too disgusting to listen to. He does this classic editing thing where he like mashes up all these sounds and visuals, and it's just hard to watch. And I get that that's part of the point, but after 4 minutes I couldn't watch anymore. I was like, I get it. And there's the thing, right? I got it after about 4 minutes. And he tends to drag out jokes, and so it's like I kind of know that this isn't really going to go anywhere fast. And so I didn't feel the need to watch the rest. But I do want to talk about these, out of these few videos that he's done, what is it like now? And so I want to pull up a clip, and this video in particular is kind of a weird one, because it's like PewDiePie's meme review. It's a reaction video, but it's less of like one small niche subject and more of coronavirus memes that everybody has already seen or had already seen at the time of this video, or that I had already seen at the time of this video. I'm making some wide assumptions here, but let's just take a look just for a second and see how it is compared to his old videos. Let's take a look.
Sorry for buying all of this product. No, I don't think that I would.
You know hand sanitizer is like the hardest flex right now. If you had a bathtub full, just dump hand sanitizer and be in it. That's like a rapper's dream right now, dude. A little wipe. A little sandy wipe.
Little sanitize on the mic.
There's a little subtle detail, and I don't know if you noticed it. I noticed it because I am a 80 plus 80, 160 IQ individual. But take a look at these two shots. And if you notice, one of them, the camera is moving around. And the other one, the camera is still and stable. And that adds to the low energy aspect of it in his newer content, I think. Have you ever seen a movie where classic movie shots, the camera is static and the camera's moving on a dolly and sweeps and pans and the camera goes forward and back and zooms, all these smooth shots, these smooth, stable shots. And then all of a sudden the camera switches to handheld. And what's going to happen next? It's unpredictable now. Like in an action movie, the guy's probably going to start like a fist fight. Like, oh, he's about to punch somebody, right? Like the camera goes handheld. It goes, whoa. Same thing with a drama, actually. Because, the camera goes handheld. He might punch somebody. I think Marriage Story had a scene like this where it was like smooth, and then handheld. And then, oh no, he's going to punch somebody. That's the only thing that handheld means, actually, is punching somebody. Film is very straightforward and not that hard to understand. I don't know why they have schools for it. But anyway, that's a very, very subtle detail that kind of adds to the low energy aspect of it. And so it's subtle, but it's basically the fall of his content. Like, it is the absolute reason that H3H3 is losing subscribers at a rate of like 1 million a day or something like that. But so that's his videos, right? We've established that his newer videos are low energy. But what about his podcast? What about that new brand spangling new podcast of his? Well, let's talk about his podcast. He starts doing the podcast in whatever it is, 2017, 2018. And I'm not really a podcast guy, but I'm basically an expert. And so I started listening to these podcasts in early whatever it was when he was first starting out. And he has two kinds of podcasts. We'll start with that. He has podcasts with guests and podcasts. Yeah, I'm still recording. Just wanted to check. Podcasts with guests. I would hate to go whatever this is, 12 minutes. And I mean, I'm not filming these in sections. I'm filming the whole thing and straight in one shot.
You liar. Ha ha ha.
He's got guests and no guests. When he has guests, the podcasts are good. They're good. He's got, here he has Idubbbz sitting in the room. Here he's got this guy sitting in the room, that guy sitting in the room, and they're just chatting. And he's pretty good about, and my only complaint would be what everybody else kind of has already kind of complained about and blown out of proportion. It's a small thing, but it is like a huge thing because it's big and it's huge, is that Ethan is bad at transitioning questions. So he'll be in like the middle of an interesting conversation and an interesting back and forth, and then he'll transition. He'll abruptly just ask another question in the middle. Sometimes in the middle of them answering, Ethan will also, in these earlier podcasts, cut people off. And so as far as the instant hard transition questions, I understand, right? You're in a situation that's stressful, and he was starting out and not very experienced too, but you're in a situation that's stressful. You want to make sure that every single minute of your podcast is entertaining and the viewer isn't going to be bored and think you're just stammering and saying all the time, and it's so high pressure. And that's why I'm proving to you right now how easy it is to do, and I'm not experiencing any of these issues. That I understand if you're in the middle of a conversation and you think of something interesting that they mentioned, and they keep going with their answer. They keep going, right? They go 5 sentences, 10 sentences, and you still have that thing in your mind you were thinking about 10 sentences ago, and then you ask it, right? It sounds abrupt, and it can sound like you're not even listening. And in some respect, you're not really listening at that point. And I get it's a high pressure situation, but a lot of people do this. Where, have you ever talked to someone and you think of what you're going to say before the other person has finished speaking? I do it all the time. in conversations. I try to be aware of it, and I try not to do it anymore, but it happens all the time, right? You can see it happening within yourself. You can see it happen in other people that, you know, they'll start talking or they'll finish your sentence, right? Don't you hate that? I've done it too, and I'm trying to stop, but I understand. My main point is that I understand Ethan's inclination here to interrupt the guest. The point still stands that it makes for a less than good conversation. It's still a good podcast. Now, when Ethan doesn't have guests on, the second type of podcast that Ethan does, sometimes he'll just do a podcast with him and Hila and the editor or the controls guy, Dan. And when it's just two people doing a podcast, Hila is, you know, in the earlier podcast, in the old podcast, we'll start with that. Hila is a little camera shy and doesn't talk all that much, right? And so I understand that part of it. But in practice, these old podcasts just kind of sound like one person talking to himself, right? And I understand. But, and you know, the few times that Hila does interject, she usually has something smart, insightful, or witty to say, but it's not very often, right? So that kind of drags down the podcast with no guests when it's just Ethan talking. And you see, when you have a podcast with someone who drags out jokes in their YouTube videos, and you just have a podcast with just them talking, you can imagine that might be an issue. He starts to drag things out. He'll get on a point, and he'll hammer that point, and then he'll reinforce that point, and reinforce that point, and reinforce that point. And it takes a little while for him to move, to progress, to heighten, to use a comedy term, right? So it was hard to listen to the podcast with no guests, I gotta say, back in the day. And it was why I really didn't listen to the podcast much at all, except for I learned to the few times that I would listen to a podcast just to watch one with a guest, because that was a bit of a better experience. Do I have an example here of the old podcast?
Yeah, but I can't find it. It's so long.
Yeah, so my main point is that his podcast was a watered down version of his content. And it was different than his YouTube video content, right? Here's this podcast. It's just a longer, drawn out, watered down H3H3 Productions video. And it's not bad by itself, but it was different. And so the transition was tough for people who liked his old content to all of a sudden introduce this new content, which is different and not the same. It's the same personality. I mean, the commonality is it's the same personality, and you've got the creative direction of the same guy, right? Ethan is still in charge of the content and what he's talking about and what's, you know, his guests that he invites. But it's different. And I'll just show you a quick clip to demonstrate he's dragging out a joke here.
I just love how whenever a YouTuber or new media personality goes on like a traditional media platform, they're always so condescending. And I don't even think that Jimmy's like conscious of it, but it's always like, hey fella, hey little guy, how'd you get here? Or they always have to make like, they have to go the extra step of being like, I invited you here because my daughter's a huge fan. I just wanted to remind you that I didn't invite you here on your merit alone.
Yeah.
And I don't want any of my viewers to think that I actually watch your stuff. Here's a couple clips of Jimmy talking to Lily Sings.
I think that's workable. Better than the first version.
How did you become so popular on YouTube? Like, what? How did it mushroom? What was it?
How the hell do you even answer that question? It's so stupid. How'd you become so popular on YouTube? Tell me about what you do. Is it a hobby? How do you make money? Do you make money on YouTube? How'd you become so popular? Aren't you great? Can you imagine asking Jimmy, how'd you get here? So you're the late night show host? How'd that happen? That's so great. How'd you get so popular on YouTube? I don't know. That's a big question.
It was kind of a shame because I'm a Jimmy Kimmel fan. But I gotta admit,
he's part of the establishment.
The question was pretty lame.
You're such a cutie pie. You're such a sweetheart. How'd you get popular? What'd you do? You do you make like jokes, or you like vlog, or what? Do you like make vlogs? That's so cool. You get money. You get paid for just posting videos. Wow. That is incredible. How did you afford this? How did you afford this First Lady orange jumpsuit? That looks expensive. They pay you on YouTube? Here's another clip. I hate that. It's so demeaning. Like, just imagine somebody being like, "How'd you get here, Jimmy?"
Or like she's also promoting a movie, but imagine anyone else who's like a beginning actress on their first time in a movie. Sure. Imagine them asking, how'd you get that? That would be so rude.
How'd you get that job? It's unbelievable. Oh, yeah, here's the other one. It's funny. They were promoting a movie, and he didn't even mention the movie or show the clip. It was the strangest promotional segment of all time.
Right. Okay, so now you're in this HBO movie, which is very, very exciting. Boy, it's really rare, I think, that somebody will make the leap from YouTube to, like, HBO, which is about as good as it gets, right?
It's pretty cool. I mean,
how'd you do that? So you made it from YouTube to HBO. That never happens. HBO is about as good as it gets. Much better than from. How'd that happen? Tell me about that process. Aren't you a lucky girl?
Conversation flows better. No guests talking with multiple people.
Asking a professional athlete, Kobe, how'd you get on the NBA? Lots of hard work. Lots of I don't know. However, anyone succeeds, Jimmy. It's funny. Jimmy's.
Now I show you that to then give you the news that his new podcasts have gotten better.
Yay.
Which I mean to say, it's the worst thing in the world. First of all, the podcast with guests, the conversations flow better. And okay, just making sure I'm recording. The conversations flow better. And they're more in depth. I've seen a couple of the ones with guests and the ones without guests. The ones with guests, the podcast he did with Logic, they got into some really deep stuff, and I really like that about it. I thought, great, we're getting to some real meat here. That was super cool. The podcast with Co to Co, that was, I think they also talked about some more deep issues, and that's kind of the draw, I think, of doing like of podcasting in general with not just YouTubers but like celebrities, is like you can go to places that you don't normally see because they're usually just, you see the entertainment part of it, and so it's neat to see the person behind the camera, so to speak. Now the one small downside, which, you know, of course ruins the entire experience, is he talks about some questionable topics. All right, so for example, the one with Cody Co, he gets a little bit inappropriate. Okay, the conversation switches gears at one point to something that rhymes with goop. All right, I don't know if that's better. I'll just say, all right, poop. Could you hear that? Actually, I don't know. Poop. All right, I'm sorry for anyone who is now sullied by hearing the word, but they talk about, and you know, in seriousness, this isn't a bad thing on its face, but they talk about it for just too long. Like, of course there's some novelty in being like, are you a front wiper, a front to back wiper, or a back to front wiper? And just having a conversation about it. Like, it's just funny that they're talking about it, but to talk about it for so long, it's just not interesting for me. Like, it just dragged on too long. Yet again, we see another example of Ethan dragging on for too long. Checkmate for bad content. Now, It's really not that big of a deal. It's a matter of taste. All right, and hopefully not tasting the poop. Okay, sorry for that one. I didn't mean to give you the visual, but checking my outline here to make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, so also he has podcasts with no guests. Well, how are the podcasts with no guests doing? Well, it's better as well. It's still progressively gotten to be the worst podcast of all time, but the podcasts with no guests are better because no longer is it just him talking to himself, right? It's kind of gone away from that, and it's more of a group discussion because now, first of all, Hila is a little bit less shy and she participates more in the conversations, which is good. And then also, he's got like 10 other people off camera that he's talking to as well. He's got like Ian and Dan and Bran and John and Brian and Mian and Steven. And okay, that was a really funny joke. And the fact that I'm commenting on how funny that was is even funnier. But what he's in reality, he's got like 4. I think it's like 3 on a normal basis, but then Starkilla was added, so it might be 4 additional people. So he's got like this, he's the main guy, but he's also got like a round table of like 4 other people and Hila. So it's more engaging. It feels more like, they are employees, but it feels more like a group of friends just kind of chatting about whatever. And I do like that. And the one podcast that I saw with no guests, Ian had a great, really interesting presentation on AI making music and how it could not bode well in the future. And I thought that was really interesting. So good on him for making that PowerPoint. And it just, so the podcasts with no guests are kind of, have improved. And I'll show you what I mean by like it's kind of a round table type situation.
Yeah. Wow, I think Dan might be a normal guy, a normal, healthy guy.
I feel pretty normal. I don't know.
You used to vape hard, but you kicked it. I mean, that's pretty incredible. Yeah. Wow. We got a normal, healthy guy over here. Yeah. So you get the award. Ian, I know you're fucked up. I'm not even gonna ask you. AB, our new ad, he sleeps like 3 hours a day. So I mean, you must have some kind of undiagnosed sleeping disorder, eh? Or maybe you do have it diagnosed, but that doesn't
no. I haven't been professionally diagnosed, but I definitely believe I do.
You might want to check that out if you're getting so exhausted and stuff. I mean, sleeping is an important function.
Yeah, I agree.
Fighting demons in my sleep like every night now.
Oh, poor Ian. So Ian, I don't know if you guys heard, but Ian kicked. So I think Sam moved into you, and you just like this sleepwalking monster. I mean, you were a sleepwalker, but like it got much worse, right? Since she moved in. Why is it
I think because someone's telling me I'm doing it. Like I might have been doing that the entire time, but I had no feedback on it. So.
All right, so you can see what his no guest podcasts are like. But we need to address. We can talk about quality all day here about Ethan's podcast. But at the end of the day, it's about respect or lack thereof. And that is the biggest issue with his podcasts, is the blatant disrespect for the fans. The biggest flaw is that he has abandoned his main content, his bread and butter old YouTube videos. I subscribed for Ethan turning his head and coughing, the shaky handheld camera, and the ice cream man going. That's an old video of his that he did. I subscribed for all that, and now what I get is a freaking 2-hour-long podcast of just the guy talking. All right? He got a dog. He got 2 dogs, and it ruins the whole dynamic. All right? Whatever magic that he had before. Whoosh whoosh. Gone. All right. It's not the same. And you know, he's gotten older and more mature, and like he's changed. He might be like changing as a person, but I can't have that because I miss the feeling that I got watching his old content. And here's what I think is the reason. All right, that he's lost the magic because he's sold out. All right, he's doing it. He's a shill. He's doing it for the money. All right. If there's one thing to blame, it's Ridge Wallet. All right? It's freaking Dollar Shave Club. We know, based on guesses from Social Blade, that Ethan makes at least $10,000 a minute on his podcast. He can afford a $500 million home in Hollywood, Beverly Hills. He can afford big freaking home. And, you know, he gets paid like $20,000 by Beats by Dre to freaking say that, oh, wow, I can hear music. Oh, cool. He's sold out. And where's his content? Where's his reaction videos? Exactly. It's not making money anymore. And what? Oh, monetization, freaking yellow $sign. Please. Okay. I'm freaking making $2 a video. Oh, please. Okay, freaking please. Oh, I'm saying the F word. Oh, boo-hoo. All right.
Just say the F word.
All right. So,
Pansy?
It's clear that he's only doing it for money. All right, it's clear. And it's going to happen eventually. You know, the cynic in me is like, you know, just all these entertainers, the minute that they allow an advertiser to make them do an ad read, getting out of breath here, it's over. It's just over. Anyway, here's a clip of, he talks about this briefly. Here,
the thing on YouTube is like, it's people really put a lot of content out, and that's like a way to succeed on YouTube. The thing is, we tend to put a lot of work into our videos, but it doesn't necessarily show. And so I'll just put a video out, and a lot of times I'm not happy with it, and I just see all the negativity, and then the video doesn't do as well as I hoped, and I'm just like, oh, fuck all
but
this.
none of that has to do with the art.
No, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I could understand that. I mean, if I lost interest in doing a certain piece, I could understand that. All right. Well, okay. Ethan's still a freaking big idiot, and I don't like him. But yeah, so that's my big old honkin' review. I don't know how this is going to end up to be. It's like 40 minutes or something of me just freaking rambling. Bottom line, in all honesty, is, you know, I mean, the takeaways here are the revelations that I tried to get across in the video here, is that, you know, Ethan is just growing as a person, and he's different than he used to be. And I mean, not a huge change, but like he's just kind of mellowing as time goes on, like any of us would. I'm less I'm a lot mellower now than I used to be. I'm a very mellow person now, but yeah, so, and I'm sorry that I'm sniffling a lot. Just think of it like Ethan's cough. I'm trying to imitate the magic and recreate the magic of Ethan's cough by doing my own like sniffle thing because of allergies. Anyway, the bottom line is that Ethan, he made good, solid video YouTube content and started out that way, and he continued to do that, and then it's clear looking back on it now that he kind of lost interest. And what do you do when you lose interest, right? Like at some point he can't make videos forever, and I get it. He moved on to something else, and it seems like he likes doing the podcast more, and that's good. Like honestly, that's good. I'd want him to do what he wants to do. So good for him. And making a podcast is tough. And I made a bunch of jokes earlier about how, it's the easiest thing in the world, and I'm trying to prove that it's so easy. And that was, highly sarcastic, and that was honest sarcasm, because this was tough. I tried to do it without, like I have here, basically, the points that I wanted to hit on. I tried doing without that, where it was just like a basic outline, and that was tough. It was 50 minutes long, like the final, without adding, like I kind of paused for a minute when I said I'm going to show a clip. And it was 50 minutes without that, so it probably would have been an hour long of what I just did now, but a lot of rambling and a lot of space in between. And so my solution was to make it more of an outline and to cut every time I show a clip. And I kind of realized that doing a scripted podcast is okay. This was kind of a hybrid where I was scripting it. Right, the thoughts that you can kind of tell some of the areas that I was kind of going off the cuff, like right now. But I was kind of doing a scripted podcast that looks like it's off the cuff. That was the feel that I was going for. And after watching or having listened to a couple more podcasts over my lifetime, I realized, the scripted podcasts by themselves aren't bad. But, this was like, again, I realized the compromise was a scripted one that looks like a unscripted one. Anywho, that wraps up today's podcast. Ethan's content is I don't know if there's a number between 5 and 9 out of 10, but that's where I would put Ethan's content. Ethan's content is since I don't have a number between that, it's a 9 out of 10, baby. Flippin', how do I end this?